We are now live. Sound check. Cleanliness and security in the downtown core task force committee meeting for Wednesday, July 13th, 2022. Sound check.
Okay, Susie, I just sent you the chair's procedures.
Hey, everybody. Sorry I'm a little late.
Good afternoon, Councillor. We have quorum now. Do you have the chair's procedures?
When did you send them, Carrie?
Matt sent them.
Matt did?
Yes, I can resend if you like.
I got them.
Okay.
Thank
And
you.
we are live.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for attending. Appreciate you being here on what's turning into a gray summer's day. This is the July 12th, 13th downtown Cleanliness and Security Task Force meeting. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Members of the public are advised that our meetings are webcast live by the city, temporarily archived on our website as well. And I would also remind all committee members and staff that they state their names every time before speaking, unless it's part of the introduction, for the benefit of those that are watching the meeting. I'm going to commence now with roll call. Councillor Nan. It's not present. Carrie, I see you. Carrie Jarvie. Hi. Susie Braithwaite, I see you. Hello. Regrets from Tim Podosick. Steve is here. Sutherland. Hello, Steve. How are you? Happy summer. Stu Laurie. Nope. And Paula Trainer. I saw you. Hi, Paula. And Anthony. Stajur. No, Anthony. We have quorum anyway. Madam Clerk, any changes to the agenda?
Mr. Chair, there are no changes to the agenda.
Okay. I'll need a mover and a seconder to approve the agenda as presented. Moved by Susie, seconded by Carrie. All in favor, just show of hands. Any questions on the agenda at all? No. Okay. Declarations of interest, seeing none. And mover and a seconder now. We're into the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. That was December 9th. To approve those minutes is Susie, seconded by Paula. All in favor, raise your hands. That's carried unanimously. On to communications. We have a resignation from Cameron Top, who was with this committee for some years. I believe I heard that he's moved out of province, if not the country. So a mover and a seconder to receive the communication, and essentially this will be moved to council for consideration if it's passed here. So moved by Paula, seconded by Susie. All in favor? Thanking Cameron for all his work in the past. Now to consents. And the first item is Cleanliness and Security in the Downtown Task Force terms of reference. And what we'll look for on this in the recommendation is that it be received. But if there's anybody on the committee that has any questions about this, now is the time. Terms of reference. Seeing none. So a mover and a seconder then to receive the terms of reference. Moved by Paula, seconded by Carrie. All in favor?
Councillor?
Yeah.
If you go down further in the chair's procedures, we actually require a motion to update the composition of the terms of reference to align with the current membership, which is 4 citizen members.
That's fine. I thought that was included. That's fine. So moved by Paula, seconded by Carrie to amend numbers, and that's all in favor. Any opposed? And now we'll move by Paula, seconded by Carrie, as amended for the clerk's records. So moved as amended. Item 7.1, moved by Paula, seconded by Carrie. All in favor? Carried. Thank you, Carrie. Appreciate that. Discussion items. We have 3 on the agenda. First one is an update respecting ongoing issues at Ferguson Station. And Judy Lamb is with us, who is our manager of commercial districts and small business. She will be providing this update about the ongoing issues at Ferguson Station. Hi, Judy.
Hey, hi, Councillor Farr. Thank you. And I know that there are still ongoing issues at Ferguson Station. what we did get an update from Waste Collections just to find out what sort of maintenance is going on at Ferguson. So we do have curbside collections, that's once a week on Tuesdays. There's alley collection 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. There is loose litter collection 6 days a week. Sidewalk sweeping is done 5 days a week. We power wash 5 days a week during the summer, Sunday to Thursdays. And I know Thursday has been an issue after gatherings on Wednesday evenings in International Village. And the encampment support is now being done by our new encampment team. So we do let them know as soon as there's encampment starting with structures that the encampment team will attend quite quickly most of the time. And we, do proactively look at the dumping and support bylaw 6 days a week, Monday to Saturdays, as a drive-by, and by 7 a.m. in the morning as complaints are registered. So in terms of the cleaning, I know that we've been trying to proactively clean that area. And I know Susie keeps us up to date whenever she notices encampments are going, but our bylaw officers and the police say that they go by every day and several times a day sometimes.
Any questions? Thank you, Judy. We lose Susie. Any questions about Ferguson Station? We lost the executive director. I think, Carrie, was it Susie's put this on the agenda, correct?
It's sorry, Mr. Chair, it's a follow-up from the previous meeting.
Okay, so well, maybe she has some tech issues. So if it's okay with the committee, we may get back to questions from the executive director. If you can hang in there just a little while longer, Judy.
Oh, no problem.
Any other on this? No? Okay, so we'll leave it. I won't receive it just yet, and we may go back to it. I'm assuming that's a technical issue. 10.2, update respecting waste management concerns in the downtown area. Joel McCormick is with us. He's the manager of waste collections. Should also say hello and thank you to Staff Sergeant Dave for joining us as well. David McKenzie, who's who do you have behind you there? I can't, it's blurry for me.
Sergeant Wright.
Yeah. Hi, guys. Thank you so much. Joel, are you with us?
No, hi. You have Anthony Ventura, superintendent. I'm filling in.
Yeah, I thought I saw you earlier, Anthony. I was calling
Yeah,
for our
sorry.
board member, Anthony, and I thought that's not the same Anthony. What do you have for us, Anthony?
Well, just the overall, like, Judy had already described, what our service provides and what we do in the downtown on a service level. What we do now is just continually patrol the area. What we've enhanced is more supervisory inspections after collection and after services are provided, just to ensure that we can have a more timely response to complaints, etc. And then just being on a proactive nature, responding much on trying to get our timeline a little quicker.
Thank you, Anthony. Questions for Anthony? We're on 10.2, and then we're going to go back to 10.1. I see Susie's return. So on waste management collections in the downtown area, so Ferguson Station and others.
Do you want me to speak to that? Sorry.
In the downtown and yeah, for sure. This is item 10.2.
Yeah, sorry, our internet just crashed, so I had to do a hotspot thing. Yeah, I just wanted to actually note that Joel's office has been really great at helping us with that. So we have seen a absolute decrease in dealing with dumped garbage and whatnot that we talked about back in, I think, the last meeting last year. And we are constantly dealing with dumped garbage. Unfortunately, it's still a massive issue. I do think residents are dumping, so we do need to look at that. But bylaw and Waste Management have been very good at helping us, and we really appreciate that more than anything.
Great to hear. Anyone else? And just real quick, Anthony, how many waste staff are on the Encampment task force or team?
Well, primarily we respond with our downtown cleanliness team. So there's 11 total. However, we utilize a strong 6 that are more trained, et cetera, to respond. But like said earlier, our involvement's been less and less as the months have been going on. More or less, the sheltered and the encampment team's been taking it on predominantly.
Good, thanks. It's noticeable. Thank you so much. Anyone else on item 10.2? Okay, so we'll go back now, Susie, to 10.1. We didn't have any other questions from anyone else. So if you have questions regarding the update on Ferguson Station.
Yeah,
Did
thanks.
you catch all of? Judy stayed with us for you.
I unfortunately didn't catch all of it, but I have been talking to Judy enough that I think I probably know what she was saying. So, couple things. We're still having issues with people sleeping rough there. One of the issues that we're having that we talked about at the BI advisory yesterday is that several times I've been told that encampments aren't considered an encampment unless they actually have a structure up, so like a tent or something like that. What we're finding happening, we've had the same group of 4 or 5 people there for about a week now, and I've actually been coming in extra early to try and see if they have an encampment up at night, and they seem to have some kind of tent or something up, and then they take it down early in the morning. I think they've caught on. I obviously have empathy for these people and want to, see them relocated somewhere that makes better sense for everybody. But unfortunately, the businesses in that area are still being negatively impacted. We still do have the soup kitchen on Wednesday nights that's negatively impacting the area that we haven't really seen any movement on. And so we're dealing with that. And unfortunately, Shakespeare's is still the victim of continuous vandalism from issues at Shakespeare or at Ferguson Station. Just this morning, he sent me pictures again of his side door that he's replaced twice now being smashed in. So there's definitely still ongoing issues. One of the other things I wanted to raise is that, yes, the city services have definitely helped there. However, the weeding needs to be paid more attention to. It's getting a bit out of hand right now. And we are finding that, yes, the waste management, as in picking up the bags of garbage, is being dealt with, but there's a lot of garbage day to day that's being strewn about from previous activity the night before. So I think we're making some strides, but I don't think we're getting to the core of the issues just yet at Ferguson Station. Hopefully, with Judy's help in trying to animate that space moving forward, that will help alleviate some of these issues, but we are definitely still managing this on a day-to-day basis.
Okay. Anyone else? Did you want to mention anything from, we did have a reference there, Staff Sergeant Dave, on more vandalism at Shakespeare's, and there's been vandalism in the past at Shakespeare's, and just from a criminal aspect, is there anything from your side to report specific to Ferguson Station?
Not anything in addition. I mean, if there's criminal activity, we'll respond and we'll look into it. As far as I don't know if there's any cameras. I've never actually done an investigation in and around that area in regards to criminality. That would be one of my suggestions moving forward, is to cameras and lighting. That's a deterrent for people in the night. If that's something that we could do, but to put a police officer there 24/7 in an ideal situation, that would, but just due to the resources, we can't do that. But yeah, Judy, go ahead.
So Susie's aware, we met with Shakespeare a couple of times now, and we did walk through some incentives, and I think they haven't applied, but CCTV cameras is an eligible expense under our facade grant. We would support if they want to apply for that. I think we do allow vandalism, but I think probably because of probably the deductible on the insurance, probably he hasn't pursued that, but we have Leo a few times and just educated him on things that we could do to help him. But I understand the frustration in terms of continuously being vandalized. It is a difficult situation for him.
So can I ask then, I'll pass the chair to Carrie, because I want to ask Susie if just, so I know obviously through my office of the Shakespeare issues, you said, quote, businesses impacted more than one. Do you guys from the International Village BIA keep records? And of these impacts, how many have been reported to police? I know monthly you meet with a representative from the HPS at the table. So are there other examples other than what's going on with Shakespeare's?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think the police would have a long record of our businesses calling in about these issues for sure. We don't specifically keep record of that because we don't know, but they reach out and tell us, what's going on. We're always telling them to call it into HPS or, to make sure that they're reporting it in. So I would say that there's definitely has to be some kind of, records of those calls for sure.
Okay, so Staff Sergeant Dave, through you, Carrie. Again, really appreciate you guys showing up, but maybe in the near future, I can get a handle on exactly what the concerns are, what those calls for service are. I just approximate how often from which business, when we're hearing businesses are being impacted by what is, what was intended to be a city asset, which was supposed to be a gathering place, and ultimately the village doesn't even, International Village handed it back to the city. I guess it was 2 or 3 years now. So there's not even any regular programming there. We want to fix it, and one of the ways in which I could look at fixing it through my office and ultimately with council approval is CCTV cameras installed by the city. How big of an impact is it? How would that work in conjunction with what Judy's suggesting with Shakespeare's and what they may do on their own property from a SEPTEB almost point of view is something else entirely. But obviously I need to add oomph to any motion that invests that kind of infrastructure, camera infrastructure on a city parkette. So I would want to liaise with you if I can't get it through International Village BIA. I'm sure there's some records. So is that something I could do through you, Carrie, to Dave? Work with you on? Yeah.
I mean, I can also help get letters of support for that too from the businesses. Like I have a string of emails daily that I could forward on. Like there's lots through the BIA that I can provide. It's just our resources are also being strained by all of this too. So
Okay. Well, generally, what are the crimes that you're hearing about?
it's more just like disruption. So like blocking of doors and people not feeling safe as customers, crossing that and just general, it's a BIA. So people come down with a certain expectation of safety and security, and the businesses are hearing from their customers they don't feel safe coming down anymore because of this. I know for a fact the soup kitchen on Wednesday night is negatively impacting certain businesses in that block, and they've reached out to let us know that. And again, we're constantly just telling them, please report this into the non-emergency line because, as we all know, the more you report in, hopefully there is some attention to it. So I feel like we're doing what we can, but unfortunately, Shakespeare's has really been the main victim of all of this activity, and I'm sure Leo would be very happy to speak to you about it.
I've spoken. Yeah, I'm well aware of Shakespeare. I'm trying to get an idea. You had said business is impacted, so we got blocking of doors. I didn't get what you said after that. What was?
Just blocking of doors and like their customers saying that they don't feel safe coming down to this area.
If I can throw some in there, and thanks for having us, everyone. I know I've talked to Susie at length about a lot of the issues going on. I've also provided her with my contact info as I'm the crime manager for the BIA area downtown, or sorry, in the international area. And I've had a lot of business owners reach out to me. Some of the things going on are disorderly behavior. I met with the owner of Denninger's yesterday there. People coming into their store, acting aggressively towards staff to the point where staff have to either engage them and ask them to leave, or they obviously give us a call and then we go based on the priority response system. A lot of drug use is evident in the area, the side parking lots. I know a couple weeks ago we responded to Studio 205 because it was a hate word scratched into the front glass. Broken windows, 187 King Street East, the hair extensions. I know that was an issue that's been going on. A lot of it is disorderly behavior, and then a lot of the stuff involving Shakespeare's. And I've been in touch with Leo several times. I've reached out to him quite a few times. I know that I've had our SEPTED officer go by there just to kind of evaluate the area, take a look at it. It is an area that kind of creates a bit of an issue because it is dark at night. It is kind of secluded. As much as it's a public area in between King and Main Street there, due to the darkness, it does hide a lot of the criminality. The people that are just malingering there in the shadows using drugs. And inevitably that kind of spills over into litter, drug paraphernalia being left around. Yeah, that's some of the issues that have been reported to me, not only through Susie and her, but also through some of the business owners reaching out to me specifically. So just wanted to throw that in there. Hopefully maybe that paints a little better picture.
Yeah, absolutely it does. So
And if I can, sorry, through the chair.
finally through, just a sec, finally through you, Carrie, just to our officers. So now I got disorderly conduct, drug use, obviously the vandalism issues at Shakespeare's and other issues. But you mentioned Studio 205, 187 King, Denninger. So this goes beyond Ferguson Station. So do we know if our downtown CCTV cameras are functional in that area? Is that something you know today, or something like I can look at later?
I don't know who monitors that.
Who are you asking?
Police. You know how we have the CCTV cameras downtown? And
I
there
believe
are
that
some
used to be monitored by cadets or auxiliary officers, but now then again, that was a few years ago when I was working in action. I unfortunately do not know right at this time if those are still monitored actively, and if so, by who.
Okay.
I'm sure that's something that we can look into and try to find out. But yes,
Okay.
I know that like back a few years ago there, they were actively monitored every day, and we were utilizing those for a lot of incidents that were happening downtown.
Okay, but from the disorderly conduct, the drug use, from the criminal stuff,
Yeah.
you can associate that in many cases, if not all, that Ferguson Station is related to what's going on at places like Studio 205 or 187 King or Denninger's. Is it like a home base you're watching and it's causing these issues just down the road, or do we know that through you, Carrie?
I can't say that they're all directly linked, just due to the nature of the way our downtown core is set up with the various services and the various socioeconomic areas of the downtown core. Because people are transient. People may move through Ferguson Station, people may move through John and Rebecca. They may be in and around, 94 York Boulevard or the YMCA. This activity might not be directly or indirectly related to Ferguson Station. So dependent on the group that's right in Ferguson Station, that would be unfair. Because we don't have any hard evidence that it's them.
Okay, so just to sum up, what I'm hearing, Staff Sergeant, is you would recommend or support much better lighting and cameras at Ferguson Station?
Yes.
Okay, good. And sorry, Susie, you were going to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify because when you had asked me, we were on 10.1. So I was speaking to the issues directly resulting in the businesses to Ferguson Station, but I have a whole bunch of other to talk about in 10.3 that Dave touched upon, just so we're clear on that.
We're still on 10.1. Is there anybody
Yeah.
else? Do you have more on 10. Okay, Steve?
Sorry. Through the chair, I'm not totally sure who I'm addressing this question to. Maybe it's more of a comment. We're talking CCTV cameras. What I guess, what is the goal? What's the solution that we're looking for? Is it more arrests? Is it better services to address root causes? I'm just not totally clear I think the problems are evident with or without cameras. But if the cameras aren't being monitored, or if they're being monitored after the fact of the evidence gathering, or the evidence of what? Evidence of a crime, evidence of a problem. I'm just not totally clear on what the sort of the general discussion is about. Well, I mean, other than the topic, of course, but.
That's good. Very good questions. Anybody want to? Looks like David, maybe David McKenzie, Staff Sergeant Dave McKenzie.
Oh, I think Susie, you were going to say something?
I was just gonna say that I think the lighting would be used to deter, which is something that I think is really important. And agree with you. I would like to have the answer to what the cameras would accomplish also, because again, it's a chicken and egg situation. But I think starting with better lighting would be probably, to me, the best option, because it is a very dark area in the design of Ferguson Station, where it kind of creates a space for that people are kind of hidden off the main road between King and Main. So I think lighting would be great. I'm in support of CTV too, but again, would also like answers on what the plan would be to use those.
So in response to the question or comment, not looking for arrests, but when people feel unsafe, feeling is a very subjective term. So if you're not used to seeing certain kinds of people, you're going to feel unsafe, which gets reported to business owners, and that's how it's negatively impacted. As police, we're not going to criminalize poverty. So just because somebody looks and acts a certain way, addictions, it's a medical issue, so that's in the realm of public health. So we're not going to rest away of the problems, if somebody, smoking a meth pipe, that's something that public health has to look into. When people see cameras and lighting, it gives give people the feeling of safety, that, hey, this is a secure area. So again, when we're dealing with people feeling unsafe, putting cameras up, people knowing that there's CCTV cameras, gives people the feeling of safety, or some people.
And then to add on to that, for our intents and purposes at HPS, if we have cameras in the area, if incidents do happen, it allows us more investigative avenues to find out possibly who is committing some of these acts of mischief, some of these acts of vandalism, the thefts, that kind of thing. I know for a fact that those cameras were very invaluable for some of the incidents that happened a few years ago when they were actively monitored, because we could call into the auxiliaries that were watching the cameras and say, hey, there's something brewing here. Can you get a look at it for us? So it does have a significant value in terms of not only the perception of creating safety amongst people, but also investigative for us after the fact.
And I do know that during COVID, a lot of the programs were put on pause because we weren't able to get any new auxiliaries in, and we had all of our COVID policies, yada yada yada, which impacted that. So that wasn't one of the first things that we ramped up once all the restrictions were lifted. But we got a auxiliary class that's just been hired. We're continuing the training to get more on, so all of our programs can be fully staffed.
Stevie, you still have the floor.
Yeah, just a follow-up question then, again through the chair. This is for Susie. I think it was the last meeting or maybe the meeting before that, in talking about the soup kitchen. At least as I recall at the time, it had been tough to identify even who was running the soup kitchen, and there was not sort of an obvious leadership, or the people that seemed to be running it were a bit mum on where they were coming from and who they were associated with. Has there been any sort of advancement on that? Have you been able to connect with people, and have they been providing any feedback on why sort of things are going the way they're going?
We have identified who it is, and the city is fully aware of that. And we are sort of hoping that, the city or the bylaw would approach them and deal with it, so that the BI is not looking like we're like, we don't want you here, get out. And then we've had that before, right? So we're kind of hoping that things could be done strategically through like a public health situation, because myself, if I'm running events there, I have to go through a seat application. I don't understand why they don't have to do the same. They're serving food. They're basically like ruining the ground with grease and things like that. So I was hoping that the city would make some movements on that. And I know that Judy's been working on that. So I am just waiting to hear what's going on. But as week by week goes by and they're still there, and it's a bit of a disruption, it's just becoming a bit of a frustrating situation. I hope that answers your question. I don't really want to say who it is, but we have identified the group behind it.
No, that's fair. It was only because you hadn't mentioned before
Yeah.
anything about that aspect of it. I thought, is that still a situation, and is there anything, we can be encouraging the city or whatever to look at? It sounds like you're on top of it, so that's perfect. Thanks. Yeah.
And just so I'm clear then, I'll just take the chair back. Susie, if you could take the chair. So Judy, are you still with us then?
I am.
So Susie, with her work and answering that last question, as with the International Village BIA, said she's dealing with you. The suggestion was from International BIA that they should go through public health, these organizers on Wednesday night, that they go through seat applications. Is there anything else that you're doing to move that along? Have you already, do we know if city staff have already reached out? I don't know if a lot of these faith group organizations do seat applications in the core. I know they don't at Gore Park, but how have you approached this, and what was the response, if you have?
Yes, through the chair. We've actually called several meetings internally with all the different groups that would might deal with this issue. So from what, and we've actually did some observation to see, and I think we found out about the same time as Susie who the group was. But now we feel that there's probably more than one group, because on the one Wednesday, there was one group that was indeed handing out food to take home. But then there were big barbecues that were brought by, we think, a separate group that was cooking at Ferguson Station. And then there was yet a third group, it seems, that was providing clothing to them. So we're not sure if it's all the same outfit that's providing that. And we have met, this is park, so we've included parks, we've included Healthy Safe Communities and the Encampment group. And so we have been meeting together quite a few times now to see how we can approach this. So we're still working on that.
Okay. Anyone else? I'll take the chair back.
If I could just ask one last follow-up question about
Oh,
that.
sorry, did I cut you off, Steve?
No,
Sorry
no,
about that.
not at all. It's just something that Judy said had sparked a further question for me. So through the chair, Judy, and perhaps to Susie, I mean, obviously you mentioned things like grease and cooking and that kind of thing. I mean, that is a cleanliness issue. From a security issue, is the concern with the soup kitchens primarily that they're drawing folks down to that neighborhood that then are subsequently causing problems? Or at least from a security point of view, is the soup kitchen itself the root of a certain number of problems? I mean, obviously not the people serving the food are not going and vandalizing the doors at Shakespeare's and such, but I guess I'm trying to get my own sense as to, like, if they would go through and get an application and public health was involved and they were doing everything properly, I mean, that there might be a little bit of an improvement in terms of cleanliness, but is it ultimately going to solve the problems that are of primary concern with that event happening down there?
Well, through the chair, I'm happy to speak to that. I think the problem is the size of the event. So, they ran there sort of under the radar for quite a few years. It was a small event. We understand that there's a need for these services, and that's where we're trying to be sensitive to this. However, being located in a business district, in a BIA, I don't think is the right answer for that. And the event has grown exorbitantly, especially during the pandemic and because of the situation with the economic fallout and things like that. So these services are clearly needed, but there's also reports from residents that there's illegal activity happening on this night. People are drinking alcohol with open cans, and it's very disruptive. So they're speaking on loudspeakers. And I know when Shakespeare's was trying to have their patio open last year on Wednesday nights, they had to steer their scheduling away from that because it was just too disruptive to their patrons because of the loudspeakers and the amount of people and the activities that were going on at that night that aren't being monitored, or clearly whoever's managing the soup kitchen, it's, to me, maybe be too big for them at this point in time. So ideally, I think I would like to see this just moved elsewhere outside of a BIA. And that's really my goal, is that I understand that there's a need for this, but I don't think where they're doing it is appropriate.
And if I can add, I think when we found out that, especially a few weeks ago, that now baptisms are
Yeah.
happening and horse troughs are being brought in, and there was a poster saying that this is a regular event now, a certain Wednesday of the month, that we brought in bylaw at that point to say, the numbers are technically against the bylaw. There is no seat application for this. So we have made bylaw aware of the situation as well.
And Steve, just to clarify, there's never been any outreach from them to the BIA either. So it's not like they're wanting to work necessarily with the businesses or the community. It's just they are there and we're supposed to just deal with it, kind of thing. So that's where I get frustrated.
So again, through the chair, Susie, if the biggest issue is the location, I mean, one may or may not have issues with the event itself, but if the issue here is primarily the location, is there an opportunity for the city then to, I mean, they'd still need the right permits and the right, I realize that there's that side of it, but I mean, is there another location identified that it could be moved to that would be less disruptive? Or has that been part of the discussion with at least those leaders that have been able to be identified? Or really has it come down to they've just said, no, we're coming here, now you know who we are, but sucks to be you, sort of, like.
I will say we have brought that up as part of the larger group discussion to see if there's somewhere close by that's more suitable. And it is a challenge, I would say, that we haven't come to a solution yet in terms of if there's an alternative, but we are constantly discussing, because I know for Susie, the ideal is to move, but then there's the optics of that, just to make, ensure that it doesn't look like we don't recognize the need for this, and that, and you can't go too far given that that's where people are used to the service. So we're addressing all sorts of aspects of that.
Okay.
For what it's worth, if it heads down this path, the staff working group, Judy, might want to talk to St. Patrick's. It's 2 blocks away, roughly, and they are regularly barbecuing, daily water, lunches, large groups, steeped in both passion and ability, and also, in my experience, no problem working with other faith groups from my understanding. So that might be the first step. I think it's still in the BIA boundary, but
It's not, it's just outside.
just outside. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's something where we could maybe start the conversation if we're looking for a third party or an outside partner. Councillor Nan's not with us right now, but she would probably go down the long list of achievements regularly, daily from the good people there. And it's so close. So that might be the answer, but I will leave it in your good hands. And is there anyone else on Ferguson Station? Okay, so let's move to 10.3, our final agenda
Councillor-
item.
Sorry, excuse me, Mr. Chair. Could I have
What's that?
a mover and seconder to receive the discussion for 10.1 and 2?
Moved by Steve, seconded by Susie on 10.1 Ferguson Station. All in favor, raise your hands. Okay, good. On 10.2, I don't think I received, we received it, the waste management concerns in the downtown area. Move to receive it. Susie, seconded by Steve, all in favor, carried. And now our final item on the agenda, I believe. Yeah. Safety and security of business in the downtown core. Susie.
So I asked to have this added to the agenda. I think we touched upon it a little bit there. My businesses are really struggling right now. As I'm sure the councillor knows, we've heard from some of our biggest stakeholders like Denningers, who are very concerned with the direction things are going. We know about what's going on at Shakespeare's. I've heard from several of my female-owned businesses that they're feeling quite unsafe. And you know, a lot of the activity we're seeing down here that Dave touched upon, the hate crime, the smashed windows, the ongoing, just like people walking into stores and you know, making owners feel very uncomfortable. One of the issues that I think we need to address that Deningers did bring up in their letter that they sent you this morning, Counselor, is definitely more police presence in the area. I know resources are strained. I've talked to Dave 1,000 times about this. And I understand that there may not be clear answers on that, but I do think the need that it needs to be addressed, that's something that needs to be taken very seriously right now. We've seen it work in the past with the action team. We know what could help us right now. So I think that's where it's a matter of a system issue with funding, and I understand that. But it's become honestly a huge ongoing struggle just to deal with the day-to-day issues, with the mental health issues, the addictions. I think the one common thread is that we all understand, you know, this is the fallout of a global pandemic. This is an economic crisis we're in. We understand that there's things going on, but I don't feel that the businesses are being as protected as they should be. As a tax base in the city, I think that when they're calling the police because they have someone enter their store, they don't know how to deal with it, and nobody's coming out, which I'm hearing time and time again. It's very frustrating for me. And I'm not putting all of this on the police. This is clearly a systemic issue that we need to be dealing with. But I'm the one that gets the calls every morning from the businesses saying, well, we had someone sleeping naked in our dumpster last night, and one of our female staff members went out and got threatened. And like, I don't have the answers for this either, but these are ongoing things that are happening in the community. And it's just feeling very scary for where we're headed. So I just wanted to put this on the agenda to let it know. And I've been kind of hesitant to speak about it because I also don't want people to think that the downtown is an unsafe place to come and to support the businesses. But at this point in time, we have turned a corner, and unfortunately the BIA resources are dealing with this from morning, noon, and night. So it's taking away from the direction we're trying to do and the projects we're trying to do too, because we're so busy just trying to deal with these ongoing issues day to day, and really not feeling like we have the systems in place to support us. I don't know what the answers are, but I know that from where we were 5 years ago to where we are now, things are drastically different, and it needs to be addressed. I mean, these businesses have a level of expectation from the BIA because our job is to keep them safe and clean. And when that's not happening, it's very hard for us to explain that to them. So a lot of the times we're the ones having to go out and try to appease them, but really not having any solid solutions for anything. And it's just a chicken and egg situation. Call it into the police, blah, blah, blah. But then if the police aren't coming, then they turn to me and say, well, that's not that's not the answer. So what is the answer? And I don't have answers for them, but I just thought it was worthy of, and Dave knows this. I've had so many conversations with Dave, and he's excellent. I've, you know, worked with Dave now for over a year, and he's really receptive when he can be, but unfortunately Dave is also busy. So it's like to have one sort of police rep that we can turn to, that we have referred the businesses now to directly report to, because they were reporting to me every day. They still are, but it's like we're sharing that responsibility. We just need more. We need more help. It's also very difficult in International Village to explain the lack of police presence when Central Station is physically located here. And I've talked about that before. So I think that, you know, community policing needs to be something that needs to be reignited in downtown to whatever capacity that is. I know I've talked to Judy about, in the new term, speaking to the police board about that, just on behalf of BIAs, and trying to reinforce that sense of community policing offices and things like that, like we once had. But I do think it's time now that we have come to a crisis point, and we need all the supports and help that we can get so that the businesses don't start moving and leaving. You know, we've worked so hard to create this community, and when I'm hearing things, you know, from Deningers that their staff is going through this, they're having to like rearrange their hours, and you know, it's not fair on them either. So I don't have the answers. I just wanted to bring it up as a discussion point and let everybody know that this is what we're dealing with every single day right now. Counselor, I think you're muted.
I don't see anybody else raising their hand or wishing to respond. Anybody want to respond? Anybody want to add to that? Steve, you're next. Go ahead.
Through the chair, just a question quickly then for the police representatives here. What generally is the, I don't know, sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Service standard or whatever. If a call comes in from somebody about a naked person sleeping in a dumpster, that really happened? Wow. Or an unruly person coming into a business. It sounds from what Susie said that in many cases there's just no response at all. I know just even from being on local community groups, like Facebook groups, that kind of thing, the Stipley area where I am, that people will post about complaints about burglaries or whatever it might be, and their frustration is that there's just simply no response, or if there is a response, it's sort of a shrug shoulders, like, well, what can you do? It's Hamilton, sort of thing, or it's the area in Hamilton where you live. Is there a priority for this sort of thing, or is that the problem that much like the meeting that I attended not long ago, a resident meeting about the Tim Hortons field and concerns around the field, it was always, well, that would require a budget enhancement, over and over again, and things that you would have thought would have just been logically included in the budget to start with. So, so what is that sort of that service standard for these sorts of complaints that Susie's speaking of?
I'll speak to that. So priority response. So like that person sleeping in a dumpster, that would be considered a trespasser. So you have trespasser or domestic. The community wants us to respond to the domestic rather than we will respond to the trespasser, but we also have a priority response that's coming in from all sectors of the city, and when there is a emergency by definition, we respond to those first. We have priority 0, that's immediate life in danger. They have priority 1, priority 2, priority 3, and priority 4. So as these calls come in, what may be an emergency to you may not be an emergency in the grand scheme of things. So that's why when people say, "Oh, the police aren't coming," it's not that we're not coming. It's just we have other priorities that would take precedence over, a trespasser. And ultimately, when we get to the trespasser, they're usually gone by the time we get to it. And with officers, the BIA, I don't know the exact boundaries of the BIA, but when officers get deployed out into the field, they may be going to different parts of the city. I know with the action team, they always get redeployed to assist with other parts of the city. So we want to be downtown, but we're always getting pulled in many different directions because we have to respond to every type of problem in the community.
To add to what Staff McKenzie's saying, so I explained when I was at Denninger's yesterday, I was explaining the priority response system. I was also explaining that it is very important for when people are calling in to the police to report these issues, these ongoing calls, is that they continuously update us on what's going on. So when COVID first started, we looked at ways that we could make it so that we could still try to take care of calls, but maybe not tie up officers on the street because we, like everyone else, have limited resources. We came up with our ARO, our ultimate response officer, who takes care of a lot of the calls for service that would simply be reporting calls. They wouldn't necessarily need an officer to attend, but that would free up officers on the street. They wouldn't have to go to those. Sometimes with trespassers, we'll get a call, if it hasn't been dispatched within 20 minutes, half an hour, because officers on the street are busy, the ARO officer will call the complainant. Hey, are these people still here? Yep, they are. Okay, great. We're still going to send someone when we have them. And if they're not, we get that call cleared off the board if the trespasser is up and gone. We're constantly trying to evaluate ways that we can continue to operate efficiently with the resources that we do have. The one thing that I have been stressing to all the business owners that have been reaching out to me is I would like them to contact us to report all matters that are going on. Cars will get broken into, someone might lose $2 in change and they think, well, I'm not going to waste anybody's time. Well, we would still like to know that that's going on because that might go with the other 15 people the next block over that their car broken into. And then also with the calls for service, we'll say the naked person in the dumpster. We want to know if that person, continuously provide us updates. Like if that person is starting to elevate, please call us back and let us know, hey, this person's elevating, they're demonstrating threatening behavior, because then that's going to change the priority of how we are going to respond to it. It's an ongoing, calls for service are ongoing in nature, and they're very fluid. And for us to know what's going on at the time helps us allocate our resources appropriately so that we can get to all these calls, make people safe, diffuse everything, and then move on to the next one.
And back to the naked person in the dumpster, that could be a medical call. We don't know all the details, but that could be a medical call.
Social navigator. Yeah.
Social navigator will come and engage. We'll get calls for, hey, there's somebody's shooting up in the park. Addiction is a medical issue. That's something that public health. I know we have our safe consumption sites or consumption sites in the area. Maybe we need to have public health go out and encourage people, instead of using it in the park, in the public, encourage people to use them in a safe environment, not only for the individual, but also for the public, that they don't have to be stepping over needles in parks. But yeah, I mean, we get calls for service for, somebody's doing drugs in whatever location. And it's like, the public doesn't want us arresting people for simple possession. I know Crowns aren't prosecuting simple possession charges. So in the grand scheme of things, we're not going to arrest our way out of that problem. There needs to be a multifaceted, all stakeholders at the table. What can we do to satisfy everyone's A, charter rights, B, safety needs, both medical, mental, and physical. So like as a community, everything ultimately gets defaulted to police, and we're trying to get other agencies to jump in and, see what they can do to assist and mitigate the problem.
So then again, through the chair, I mean, what conversation? I mean, not you have to summarize the conversations, but I mean, then are those conversations happening with those other groups? So when there are calls coming in for people shooting up in the parks, if that's a public health issue, then is that call being referred to public health? Is public health sending anybody out? If it's an issue with mental health, for example, then are the social navigators being called, or is I don't know who the teams would be, probably not Coast in this case, but whatever, I mean, are those being referred, or are the calls being taken and then more or less just ignored? Maybe not literally ignored, they're recorded somewhere, but and then further to that, I know recently I was just reading an article about the ambulance system, and I forget what they code something or something zero or whatever, when there's no ambulances to go out. Are there similar types of statistics, or is that something that is also recorded from a policing point of view, that all officers are now engaged, we have nobody to respond? Is that something that's paid attention to, and is that a reason for seeking more funding and additional officers because it happens too often, or that sort of thing? So sorry, there was two questions in there, but
well, as far as when every call has a priority, and if there's officers tied up on a priority 0, 1, or 2, a trespass would be a 3 or 4. So officers have to finish their responsibilities on their call. So sometimes when a call comes out, there'll be no units available, and that sits in there, and then they'll work to clear officers from certain calls. Depends on at what stage each officer is on the call. And again, officers are spread all throughout the city, and that's where that's one of the challenges that comes in. And something might come in as a trespasser, but it's actually a mental health call. And so we'll have our MCERT units respond. But again, the MCERT units are responsible for the entire city. So if they're in North Flamborough and they have a call downtown, they're going to try to respond, but it's going to take them however many minutes to get there. So that's also one of the challenges, because they have to cover from Flamborough all the way to Winona, all the way out to the Halton border. So again, it is a big city. The response may be in time, but we've just in January we deployed a fourth MCERT team. So we have coverage 20 hours of the day. We're one of the first services in the province to do that. So we are making our adjustments, reallocating resources for certain things, more resources reallocated for Social Navigator. We're also in the process of setting up, you asked a question about conversations with other stakeholders. We do have it's called the Rapid Intervention Support Team, where we partnered with St. Joe's, Interval House, John Howard Society, Wesley, I'm forgetting a couple, where,
Why?
the Y. We're bringing, everyone's brought to the table because we all are essentially dealing with the same clients, but every stakeholder has a little piece of the pie that they're dealing with, maybe this person's addiction and this person's mental health or this person's housing. But we bring them all to the table and we can all talk, we can all figure out what resource best serves their needs. Because these are high acuity individuals that have many complex needs that just due to some people don't know how to navigate the system. And by bringing everybody to the table, we can help. And that's why it's a long process that we're not going to arrest our way out of it. We don't want to arrest our way out of it. What we want to do is we want to share the responsibility. As you can see, last year in 2020, 2021, we had a number of entrenched encampments throughout the city, whether it's J.C. Beamer, whether it's Confederation Park, Central Park, Jackie Washington, Bay and Strawn. Now we don't have any of those entrenched encampments because it took some time where we had to go and engage people and find out what their needs are. And I can ask you what your needs are and you can tell me in 5 minutes, and we can, but other people's needs are way higher, more acute, higher acuity. So they more complexity to their needs, which will take time. And so that's why we're going to continue what we're doing. I've seen the improvement because I'm out there every day. I'm in the encampments. My team's always in the encampments, and we allocated resources such as the encampment engagement team to go and engage people. What do you need? I've gone into encampments and said, what do you need? Sit down, find out what they need, and refer them to the other services. So again, we're taking a multifaceted approach with compassion, ensuring that everyone's charter rights are upheld. And so that's what we're doing moving forward.
And unbelievably incredible. 20 years ago, a staff sergeant with any big city police department wouldn't have mentioned things like MCERT and Social Navigator and the new WRIST program and enhancements, as Dave just very eloquently summed up to a lot of them recently. Police have inherited mental health and addiction counseling essentially as part of their job function, Steve. And I'm speaking as not only a counselor, but now a proud member of the Hamilton Police Service Board. But it really is something that over time, it just sort of happened. And it's going to it's going to take getting on the same page with everyone and working with everyone. And I think we provide really good examples of successfully doing that in this city that is probably more challenging than most when we look at our comparators, particularly in Canada. And we're doing very, very well. But it's an everyday thing. And so to the first part of your question, some of the partners working with HPS, with Hamilton Police, are city staff, lots of city staff, daily city staff, and it is health, it's emergency community services, paramedics that are part of our Social Navigator program. It goes on and on. So there is a collective effort, and we do try as a city, I'm speaking to city staff, to work collectively and collaboratively with some very passionate service organizations, some that have been around for generations who really know street outreach and things like that, mental health issues and homelessness and housing. And most of them, unfortunately not all, some have chosen to be activists and take the city to court versus working collectively, which is fine. That's fine if that's the agenda. But for the most part, that is extremely helpful too. There is no example, I don't think, of us not taking some very innovative regular approaches to solving some of these issues. It's every day, but we still have the issues, and you know, we're not alone. Toronto, London, Kitchener, Google it. Everyone's kind of dealing with this right now. It's just what's happening, and it's not going to help us if we, you know, break off into silos, but instead meetings like this open some eyes on certain issues, isolate certain areas, hearing things like, you know, having the attendance. I mean, we had the wherewithal to start this thing 20 years ago, safety and security in the downtown task force. But you know, when you have police at the table and meet regularly in venues like this and so many others, you know, a guy like me goes, okay, you know what, I'm going to get that lighting at Ferguson Station, and that helps mitigate, helps move some problems along, whether real or perceived. And then you start thinking about CCTV cameras. So time to you know, see if some of these new auxiliary officers that we also learned about today that we're going to be getting soon can start monitoring that a little more closely in some of the hotspots that we learn about. This committee is just one example, though, but there are a number of internal working groups we have on the encampment team. Every morning at 9 o'clock, they meet, all these senior managers with people like Staff Sergeant David and people from police. And they kind of go through a roll call like police do. Is that, you still guys still call it the roll call in the morning before you, just like on Hill Street Blues, I think, something like that. Anyway, it's something we pay very close attention to, devote a lot of resources, people and money in this city. And I don't think we're really doing anything wrong. It's just trying to keep up with issues is a challenge, and we're not alone. I don't think.
And I think ultimately that was my question. And again, you know, responding to what Susie's concerns were. And I mean, a lot of what we're talking about is high level, you know, I mean, systemic, those sorts of things. There are programs in place that should help on the low level. And yet what Susie's describing is still call after call after call,
Yeah, because
incident after incident after incident. And it's the bottom line, just, well, we're too big, we don't have enough resources. Then what's necessary to get those more resources? Is it just simply a money problem? Is there a different problem?
look, and I've said it publicly many times. I'll say it again publicly here. Not everybody takes the hand up either, and that's a problem, right? Like, you get a friendly guy like Staff Sergeant Dave, and he knows a lot of people in the urban area. He knows exactly what we're talking about right now. But there are some people that see him coming and aren't interested in what just HBS is offering in terms of outreach and a way forward and a way to, you know, help mitigate your addiction issue or get you some housing. It's incredible, actually. And that was the issue we were having again with the encampments. They felt empowered, they stayed. That was the preference versus maybe a shelter as a temporary means before you got your housing. You go to shelter and they have people there that help you find housing, but you don't like the rules. So you want to live by your own rules. You want to live in an encampment, and people were empowering that activity. And so we are dealing with, I don't know the percentage, but I know that we are dealing with a good portion of individuals. We tend to talk a lot more about this in the summertime, who have a preference to live rough, sleep rough, and live by their own rules. And it's unfortunate, and it's not exclusive to the city of Hamilton or the downtown of Hamilton, but it's definitely something worth always staying on top of, for sure. So that was my rant. Steve, sorry, Steve, I was answering your question. You still have the floor, and then Susie's next.
I think I think that part of the discussion has largely come to an end. I don't mean the topic, but I mean the sort of what I was trying to get at. I would maybe just summarize by saying it sounds to me like, at least in theory, you know, some of these low priority calls that may be better handled by another department. In theory, they're being handed off to those other departments, whether that be public health or something to do with mental health or some of these program partners. You know, I mean, whether that in practice is happening on a regular basis and having an actual impact isn't as clear to me. If the calls keep coming in, and you know, if nobody from the Y or MSRT or whatever is showing up, you know, I mean, that obviously is of concern to Susie and her business partners in the BIA. I mean, and other BIAs. So, but no, I mean, everybody's saying the right things. It's just a question of in practice, are the outcomes the right outcomes? And I'll leave it at that. I think that answers all my questions. Thank you.
Susie.
Yeah, just to touch upon what Steve's saying a little bit further. So I hear everything you're saying, and honestly, nothing makes me more frustrated and upset when I am stuck between a business owner who's desperate for help and understanding that the resources are limited for police and trying to be sensitive to that also. But how do we, we've identified some areas today that definitely need some more policing, some more attention. We've brought to this table over the years the discussion of, replacing Kevin Beta, who was here years ago, as the 1 foot, patrol on the street that seemed to really help the businesses feel safer and have that person to refer to when somebody is at their door, and then, calling his cell phone and he's there within 5 minutes. Like, I understand resources are strained, but I still would like to see something like that in place. And maybe a recommendation from this task force. I'm not sure how that goes, but I think just, we're all talking and understanding the situation, but we need some solutions. And, that's one that I think would probably help the business owners feel better, so just putting that on the table.
Anyone else? All right. On to move to receive the item. Moved by Steve, seconded by Paul. All in favor? Any opposed? None. Notices of motion? Any notices? Seeing none. General information. I don't see anybody. Do we have any general information? I'll have one item of general information. So we have had a long list of concerns in the downtown BIA at John Rebecca Park. And I could go through them, but I think we've had enough sensational stories for one day. But I will be moving a motion through council to put cameras in John Rebecca Park, more or less to tackle the criminal issues. A lot of vandalism, a lot of wiring, steel furniture structures, which were stolen for scrap, presumably. Huge damage to the point where we can't open our splash pad. All of this at a relatively new park in the downtown. So we've had enough issues there where I've drafted a motions for CCTV cameras. I will talk to my friends in Urban Renewal about maybe adding a few for Ferguson. Definitely I'll add seeking some approval to get better lighting. So I appreciate the suggestions from Hamilton Police Services for John Rebecca Park. But there are certain areas of our downtown where I think it's clear that bona fide criminal activity requires a little bit of a step up in terms of infrastructure improvements. And certainly that's what this draft motion seeks, and hopefully helps mitigate some of the issues that we've seen there at John Rebecca Park. And in all likelihood, Ferguson will, since this was a productive meeting there and helped me understand a little bit better on, what may make some residents and business owners in that area feel a little bit better. So that's my general info. Anybody else? Move to adjourn. Moved by Steve, seconded by Susie. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you very much. Thanks, Carrie. Good job.